So, the chatter making rounds is that Claressa Shields, the self-anointed queen of women's boxing, has finally been caught red-handed pushing one of the biggest promotional lies of the entire year, and sources across the boxing community are saying that the whole State Farm Arena first female headliner narrative that Claressa Shields and her people have been marketing all summer long is nothing but a manufactured fairy tale designed to erase the legacy of an actual boxing pioneer. Listen, Claressa Shields didn't just stretch the truth here, and this isn't a case of harmless promotional spin either, because the entire pillar her August press run was built on has been publicly shredded by receipts, records, and a boxing history book that predates her professional career by nearly a decade. And the woman whose name is being systematically buried underneath the Claressa Shields hype machine, the woman whose legendary footprints were already stamped inside that exact same arena more than 20 years ago, is none other than boxing royalty herself, Laila Ali. Real talk, this is not a small thing. This is a full-blown legacy theft operation, and Claressa Shields is standing right in the middle of it, holding the microphone. Folks, if you've been paying attention to how Claressa Shields has been branding herself lately, you already know exactly what kind of performance we're dealing with, because Claressa Shields has spent the last 5 years constructing this bulletproof self-image where she is the greatest woman of all time, the alpha, the origin point of women's boxing as we know it. And the promotional team behind Claressa Shields has been aggressively feeding that narrative into every media outlet that will listen. And now the chatter making rounds is that the very cornerstone claim of her most recent event, the whole first woman to ever headline State Farm Arena in Atlanta pitch, isn't just misleading. It's the kind of misleading that requires the deliberate erasure of another black woman's professional accomplishments, which is a particularly ugly thing to have to unpack. Reportedly. But the receipts on Laila Ali are permanent public record. Now peep this, because this is where the Claressa Shields story really unravels. On September 24, 2004, and again on February 1, 2005, Laila Ali walked into that exact same building in downtown Atlanta and headlined not one, but 2 nationally televised boxing cards inside the same arena that Claressa Shields is now claiming she was the very first female fighter to headline. The building was operating under the name Phillips Arena at that time, but the corporate rebrand from Phillips Arena to State Farm Arena didn't tear down the walls, didn't relocate the seats, didn't shift the address, and did not, in any universe of common sense, wipe Laila Ali's name out of the arena's boxing history. Same bricks, same floors, same city, same building. The only thing that changed is the sponsor whose logo hangs above the main entrance. And yet Claressa Shields, her promotional team, and every media outlet that echoed the talking points have been running with the fiction that this was a first. It wasn't a first. It was, at best, a technicality dressed up like a milestone. And that's being extremely generous to Claressa Shields. Look here, this is a lot bigger than a stat sheet dispute. And the whole reason the boxing internet has erupted this week is because the deception cuts against the grain of what boxing history is supposed to protect. When Laila Ali stepped through those Phillips Arena ropes in September 2004 and dropped Gwendolyn O'Neal with a third-round knockout to capture the IWBF light heavyweight title, she wasn't just checking a box. She was headlining a professional boxing card as a black woman in a major American arena during an era when women's boxing was fighting for every inch of mainstream oxygen it could pull down. That was groundbreaking. That was the moment Atlanta first hosted a female boxer as the marquee attraction inside that building. And when Laila Ali came back to that same arena on February 1, 2005, and finished Cassandra Gigar in the 8th round on ESPN2's Friday Night Fights, she wasn't a supporting act, she wasn't a sideshow, and she wasn't the co-feature. She was the main event twice inside 12 months. But now Claressa Shields wants to erase both of those nights because the building's name got repainted somewhere between the two eras. That is not a first. That's a rewrite. Nobody can pretend otherwise. Nobody in the boxing community with a functioning memory believes Claressa Shields didn't know what Laila Ali did in that building. The two of them have publicly gone back and forth for years. Claressa Shields has called out Laila Ali by name, mocked Laila Ali's era of boxing, and dismissed her professional resume as if it belonged in a museum instead of on the current events desk. So the idea that Claressa Shields somehow forgot Laila Ali headlined that arena is not credible. This wasn't a memory lapse. This was a marketing decision, and the marketing decision was to bulldoze the elder pioneer's footprint and paint fresh Claressa Shields branding right over the top of it. Family, that's not history making. That's history editing, and the boxing world is not letting it slide. Whispers running loud in Atlanta this week are that the August event wasn't even the sellout Claressa Shields and her people bragged about all over social media. According to fans and ticket tracking accounts monitoring the door in real time, huge sections of the upper deck were dressed with giveaway wristbands. Comp tickets were being handed out to whoever wanted them, and the sold-out energy that Claressa Shields tried to sell the algorithm was really just an aggressive papering operation designed to inflate the illusion. If you have to give away seats to fill a building, that's not selling it out. That's decorating it. And a genuine headliner, a true main event with authentic drawing power, does not require a buy one get 10 free promotion to look full on camera. Claressa Shields knows that. Her team knows that. And the boxing purists watching this event unfold in real time knew exactly what they were watching. Now let me put a spotlight on the packaging, because this is where the Claressa Shields brand truly gives itself away. The event wasn't marketed like a pure boxing card, and anybody with eyes on the poster could tell you that. It was marketed like a reality television crossover event. Zeus Network personalities were parachuted into the promotional cycle. Ray J was booked into a co-feature that boxing analysts called one of the most embarrassing exhibition-style bouts of the entire year. The Baddies franchise was rolled onto the red carpet, as if the fight card needed the extra celebrity juice to survive. And every single one of those decisions telegraphed the same message. Claressa Shields, on the marquee power of her name alone, could not sell out State Farm Arena. She needed help. She needed the reality TV world to hoist her into the arena's rafters. And that's the exact opposite of what an actual first-of-her-kind, generation-defining boxer needs. Muhammad Ali didn't need the Real Housewives standing next to him at weigh-ins. Mike Tyson didn't need a Baddies cameo. Marquee names build their own gate. Claressa Shields did not, and the receipts prove it. But watch what happens next, because this is the part where the Claressa Shields myth machine really starts to sweat. As soon as the first woman to headline State Farm Arena claims started getting fact-checked, the promotional apparatus quietly retreated to a fallback line. The fallback went something like this. Well, technically Claressa Shields is the first woman to headline the arena since it was rebranded from Phillips Arena to State Farm Arena. Do you see the sleight of hand there? Do you see how the goalposts just moved? The original headline was, first woman to ever headline this building. The retreat headline is, first woman to headline this building since the rebrand. Those are two completely different statements. One is a historic first. The other is a Wikipedia footnote wrapped in a Zeus Network press release. And the switch happened in real time, on the record, in front of everybody who was paying attention. That is the definition of promotional dishonesty. Real talk, though, the fact-checking should never have been this easy. A 5-second Google search on Laila Ali's professional record surfaces 2 headline dates in the exact same building. So either Claressa Shields' promotional team did the research and lied anyway, which is the more damning scenario, or Claressa Shields' promotional team didn't do the research at all, which is embarrassing on a whole different level for a fighter who claims to be the greatest woman ever to lace up gloves. There is no third option here. Every path leads back to a manufactured claim, and every path leads back to Laila Ali as the actual pioneer whose name got shoved under the rug so the Claressa Shields spotlight could shine a little brighter. Now let me hit you with the professional record breakdown, because this is where the whole Claressa Shields legacy pitch gets exposed in the ugliest way possible. Claressa Shields is currently sitting at 19 wins, 0 losses, with 4 total knockouts across her entire professional career. 4 knockouts across 19 professional fights. And the Claressa Shields camp wants the public to accept her as the greatest woman ever to strap on gloves. Meanwhile, Laila Ali retired in 2007 with a record of 24 wins, 0 losses, and 21 knockouts. 21-1. If you're keeping score at home, Laila Ali finished more opponents with her fists than Claressa Shields has finished with her fists and her judges combined. That is not a small gap. That is a canyon. That is the difference between a fighter who ended nights early and a fighter who needed the scorecards to do her closing work. And that comparison alone should end every greatest of all time conversation before it starts. But let's keep going, because the resume stack gets even thinner when you actually stress test it. When people bring up Amanda Serrano in the same conversation, the numbers get even more brutal for Claressa Shields. Amanda Serrano is sitting on a professional record with 30-plus knockouts. 30-plus. Compare that to Claressa Shields' 4, and it's not even a debate, it's a burial. And here's the part the Claressa Shields fan base doesn't want to hear. Knockout ratio matters in boxing. Because knockouts are the sport's most objective proof of dominance. Knockouts don't rely on the judges. Knockouts don't rely on the promotion. Knockouts don't rely on the sponsor's logo above the door. A knockout is a knockout. And Claressa Shields, in 19 professional bouts across 5 weight classes, has produced exactly 4. That's a fighter who wins on activity, angles, and volume punching. That is not a devastating destroyer. And it is absolutely not the resume of someone who gets to walk around calling herself the GWAT without triggering the entire boxing community into a laughing fit. And speaking of that GWAT branding, family, let's have an honest conversation about that acronym. Because that acronym is at the exact center of why so many people cannot stand to hear the Claressa Shields name in a serious boxing conversation anymore. GWAT stands for Greatest Woman of All Time, and Claressa Shields wears that title as if it were surgically welded to her ribcage. She stamps it on her merchandise. She stamps it on her introductions. She stamps it on her social media handles. She stamps it on her camp shirts, her belts, her promotional posters. Every conversation Claressa Shields enters, that acronym walks in ahead of her like a bodyguard. And that, right there, is the tell. Because the actual greats of any combat sport historically don't have to announce their own greatness. Muhammad Ali announced his own greatness because he was Muhammad Ali, and because he was one of one culturally, and even that took a lifetime of receipts to back up. Mike Tyson didn't need to trademark a hashtag to prove he was Mike Tyson. Sugar Ray Leonard didn't need a self-appointed acronym. The greats let the record book do the shouting. When you have to build your own crown, weld it to your own head, and dare everybody around you to challenge it, you have already lost the plot. Now here's where the Michael Jordan comparison lands the hardest, because Claressa Shields loves to lean on Olympic gold medals as the tiebreaker for her greatest ever argument. She loves to say, well, I'm the only American boxer with 2 Olympic golds, so the debate is over. Look here, that argument doesn't survive contact with actual boxing history. Because in boxing, the Olympics is a resume line. It is not the resume. It is the on-ramp. Mike Tyson didn't even fight in the Olympics and became one of the most feared heavyweights the sport has ever produced. Muhammad Ali won an Olympic gold in 1960 and then went on to build the entire mythology of his career inside the professional ranks. Nobody argues that Muhammad Ali is the greatest heavyweight of all time because of what he did in Rome. He is the greatest because of what he did against Sonny Liston, Joe Frazier, George Foreman, and Ken Norton across 2 decades of primetime professional warfare. The Olympic gold was a footnote. The professional record was the story. The exact same logic applies in reverse to Claressa Shields. 2 Olympic golds are meaningful. 2 Olympic golds are impressive. But 2 Olympic golds do not overrule a professional knockout ratio that reads like a middle school science fair grade. The basketball parallel makes it even more obvious. Kevin Durant currently holds the most Olympic gold medals in USA basketball history. Nobody in the sport of basketball is calling Kevin Durant the greatest basketball player of all time because of what he did against Serbia in the Olympic final. Michael Jordan is the greatest because of 6 NBA Finals rings, 5 MVPs, 2 three-peats, 10 scoring titles, and a decade of Sunday night documentaries that still play in every living room in America. In every sport where the professional stage exists, the professional stage is the resume. The Olympics are the audition. Claressa Shields aced the audition. That is undeniable. But acing an audition doesn't hand you the crown of the professional game. And Claressa Shields, in the professional game, has 4 knockouts. Just 4. Meanwhile, Laila Ali has 21. That's not a debate. That's a math problem, and the math problem answers itself. Now, moving on to the moment inside the arena that boxing purists cannot stop rewinding. Because this is the moment that makes the Claressa Shields brand management operation look even more exposed. Right after the fight against Kay Scott, Claressa Shields stepped out for her post-fight interview, wearing an outfit so aggressively off-brand for the sport of professional boxing that even neutral viewers couldn't look away. Blue-tinted hair, red platform heels, a skimpy custom fit that looked like it wandered out of the wrong club at the wrong hour. Claressa Shields wanted to make a statement, and she made one, just not the statement she thought she was making. She looked less like a champion boxer conducting a legacy-defining post-fight walk, and more like a reality TV crossover contestant chasing a viral moment. That, right there, is a symptom of the entire problem with the Claressa Shields brand. She is trying to headline 2 industries simultaneously. She wants to be a champion boxer and a Zeus Network personality and a baddies-adjacent influencer and a legacy pioneer and a fashion week walker. And when a fighter tries to be all 5 of those things at once, the boxing part of the identity is always the first thing that gets diluted. But watch what happens next, because the fashion moment is not the story. The story is the fashion moment plus the promotional lies plus the Laila Ali erasure plus the papered arena plus the first woman to headline fabrication. Stack them all together, and what you get is a portrait of a fighter who is more invested in the mythology than the receipts. A fighter who cares more about the tagline than the truth. And that pattern, that specific pattern, is exactly why the boxing community has stopped granting Claressa Shields the benefit of the doubt on any of her promotional claims. The trust deficit is real, and the trust deficit is earned. Real talk. Though, this is where I want to steer the conversation back to Laila Ali for a minute, because Laila Ali deserves so much more than to be treated as a footnote in the Claressa Shields press cycle. Laila Ali is one of one. Laila Ali is the daughter of Muhammad Ali, but her professional career was never a legacy handout. Laila Ali built a 24-fight undefeated professional run against real competition in an era where women's boxing barely got network airtime. Laila Ali fought Jackie Frazier-Lyde in a legacy-heavy sequel to Ali vs. Frazier that broke pay-per-view expectations for women's boxing. Laila Ali stopped Gwendolyn O'Neal, Cassandra Gigar, and a long list of credentialed opponents. Laila Ali was headlining ESPN2 Friday Night Fights when Claressa Shields was still in middle school in Flint. That is the actual history. That is the actual legacy. And any first female to headline conversation involving that Atlanta arena has to start with Laila Ali's 2 nights at Phillips Arena, or it is not a serious conversation. Period. Full stop. Look here, this is why the Claressa Shields, first woman to headline State Farm Arena, claim burns so hot in the community. Because it isn't just a technicality violation. It is a legacy violation. It's an act of professional disrespect stacked on top of an act of promotional fabrication. And Claressa Shields keeps doubling down on it publicly. She keeps doing interviews where she waves the historic first flag. She keeps letting The Breakfast Club and every other outlet that platforms her run the first female headliner, cheering underneath her face without ever correcting the record. Every time she lets it play, she is co-signing the erasure. Every time she doesn't push back, she is endorsing the myth. And every time she endorses the myth, she is telling Laila Ali, telling women's boxing history, and telling every fan who values the truth that her personal brand matters more than the professional record. Now, the chatter making rounds is that this is not the only lie in the Claressa Shields promotional catalog. It is just the loudest one this week. Because if you actually stress test the Claressa Shields resume, the pattern replicates itself again and again. She likes to claim she is a 21-time world champion. And when you actually stack up her professional record, a large number of those belts are vacant belts that she captured against opponents nobody outside the hardcore boxing internet had ever heard of. Vacant belts are not undefended belts. Vacant belts do not require you to beat a reigning champion to acquire them. Vacant belts are like new title real estate that the sanctioning bodies invent to sell more sanctioning fees. Any fighter with the money to pay the fee and the promotional muscle to book the fight can chase a vacant belt. And Claressa Shields has chased a lot of them. That doesn't diminish her wins. But it does destroy the 21-time champion branding, because most of those 21 titles come with an asterisk the size of Atlanta. But hold on, because I have to zoom back out to that arena one more time. Because the analogy that keeps trying to save the Claressa Shields narrative is the different sponsor, different building gymnastics. And I need everybody to understand exactly why that gymnastics doesn't hold. Let's use a national example. The Superdome in New Orleans has been the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, and it is now the Caesars Superdome. Same building, same seats. Same city, same NFL host franchise, same address. If a female rapper had sold out that building under the Mercedes-Benz name in 2015, would anybody with a straight face argue that a different female rapper who sold it out under the Caesars name is the first woman to sell out that arena? Of course not. That would be ridiculous. That would be laughed off the internet within an hour. But that is exactly the trick Claressa Shields and her people are trying to pull with the Phillips Arena to State Farm Arena rebrand. Same building, same city. Different logo above the door. And somehow Claressa Shields is now supposed to be the first woman to headline the building because the corporate contract got renewed under a new sponsor. That is not how history works. The building doesn't reset because the naming rights got sold. Family, if the Madison Square Garden name ever gets sold to a different sponsor, does that erase every headliner who ever performed at Madison Square Garden? Does that wipe Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier off the record? Does that erase the Ollie Norton trilogy? Does that erase every legendary card that ever headlined that building? Obviously not. The building is the building. The history is the history. The sponsor is a marketing agreement that has no bearing on the arena's professional legacy. And any promotional claim built on the opposite assumption is a promotional claim built on sand. Now peep this, because the Claressa Shields camp knows all of this. They know the arena is the same arena. They know Laila Ali headlined it. They know the sponsor rebrand doesn't erase the boxing history. And they ran with the first woman to headline claim anyway. That is not a mistake. That is a strategic decision. And the strategic decision reveals more about the Claressa Shields brand philosophy than any of her actual fights ever have, Because the strategic decision tells you that her camp is willing to trade truth for reach. That her camp is willing to trade accuracy for algorithm. That her camp is willing to trade Laila Ali's legacy for a viral cheer-in on the Breakfast Club. That is the calculation. And every time Claressa Shields signs off on that calculation, she is telling the sport of boxing that her personal PR machine matters more than the sport's collective history. Moving on to the boyfriend situation, because you can't have a full Claressa Shields conversation without addressing Papoose, and Papoose has become his own gravitational field in this story. Papoose is a New York rapper best known for the K-Slay mixtape era, and his relationship with Claressa Shields has become one of the more publicly dissected pairings in black celebrity culture over the last 2 years. He has been photographed courtside with her, ringside for her, front row at her weigh-ins, and standing beside her at every press stop. And the Claressa Shields camp has leaned into the Papoose branding as if it were an accelerant for her personal narrative. The problem is, Papoose brings his own comedic energy to the picture, and every time he shows up in a Claressa Shields interview cycle, the internet loses composure. And when a fighter is trying to sell you on being the greatest woman of all time, but her partner keeps stealing the frame with slapstick material, the branding starts to unravel. And Papoose is a symptom, not the disease. The disease is the fact that the entire Claressa Shields ecosystem has become a celebrity-first, boxing-second operation. Every promotional push feels engineered around the personality. Every interview feels engineered around the persona. Every headline claim feels engineered around the branding. And the boxing itself, the 4 knockouts in 19 fights, the vacant belts, the K. Scott fight against a 42-year-old opponent, all of that feels like the smaller of the 2 productions. Because in the Claressa Shields universe, the fight is the trailer. The persona is the movie. And that ratio is exactly upside down from what boxing purists want to see in a legacy candidate. Real talk, if you want to see what a legacy candidate actually looks like in women's boxing right now, you have to zoom back over to Amanda Serrano. Amanda Serrano fights the best available opposition. Amanda Serrano finishes fights. Amanda Serrano has been in wars against Katie Taylor that will be studied in boxing gyms for the next 30 years. Amanda Serrano does not need a Zeus Network crossover to sell tickets. Amanda Serrano does not need a Baddies red carpet to fill an arena. Amanda Serrano does not need to trademark her own greatest of all time acronym. Amanda Serrano lets the fights carry the resume. And Amanda Serrano is one of the reasons the greatest woman ever conversation cannot end at Claressa Shields. The knockout numbers between them are not close. The quality of opposition is not close. The public consensus among boxing insiders is not close. And every time Claressa Shields tries to wave the GWAT flag, Amanda Serrano's resume quietly outperforms hers on the very metrics that historically define boxing legacies. But watch what happens next, because Claressa Shields will never fight Amanda Serrano. Claressa Shields will never share a ring with the one fighter who could definitively settle the greatest woman of all time debate. And the boxing community sees that. The boxing community has been begging for a Shields versus Serrano fight for years, and the Claressa Shields camp has ducked, dodged, weight-classed out, negotiated in circles, and priced the fight into oblivion every single time it has come close to being made. That's not the behavior of a fighter who genuinely believes she's the greatest. That's the behavior of a fighter who is protecting a brand. Because a fight against Amanda Serrano is a fight where the branding cannot save you. In a fight against Amanda Serrano, the fists do the arguing. And in a fight where the fists do the arguing, Claressa Shields does not walk out with the greatest of all time crown intact. Now look here. None of this is to say Claressa Shields is a bad fighter. Nobody credible in the sport is arguing that. Claressa Shields is a technically skilled boxer with fast hands, an elite jab, an above-average ring IQ, and a work rate that has carried her through 5 weight classes without a professional loss. That's real. That deserves its flowers. But Claressa Shields is not the greatest woman of all time. Claressa Shields is not the first woman to headline State Farm Arena. And Claressa Shields is not the origin point of women's boxing. Every single one of those claims is a manufactured overlay her camp has painted on top of the actual record. And the actual record, when you strip away the branding, tells a very different story. The actual record is a good career. Not a legendary one. Not yet. Not without a Serrano fight. Not without a Real signature win. Not without the kind of knockout-heavy, era-defining stretch that Laila Ali, in her time, actually produced. Whispers running loud in Atlanta this week are that even the Claressa Shields fan base is starting to soften on the branding, because you can only pull the first-ever card so many times before your own supporters start rolling their eyes at the frequency. Every promotional cycle from the Claressa Shields camp introduces a new first-ever tagline. First woman to headline this. First American to accomplish that. First fighter to unify these. First boxer to cross this weight boundary. First. And when everything is a first, nothing is a first. The word loses its meaning. And the audience starts pattern recognizing the promotional playbook, which is exactly what has happened this week. The State Farm Arena claim is the one that broke the pattern recognition wide open, because this time the receipts were too public, the Laila Ali footage was too accessible, and the boxing community was too well-informed to let the myth ride. Reportedly. But even more damaging to the Claressa Shields brand than the receipts themselves is the tone of the response. When the fact check first went viral this week, the Claressa Shields camp had a choice. They could have owned it. They could have said, hey, we should have honored Laila Ali's Phillips Arena history in our marketing. That would have been the mature move. That would have de-escalated the story overnight. That would have earned Claressa Shields a real credibility bump inside the community she keeps saying she wants to lead. Instead, the camp doubled down. Instead, the camp shifted the goalposts to the since the rebrand technicality. And that defensive posture is exactly the kind of behavior that turns a one-day story into a career-defining pattern. Because the pattern isn't just about the State Farm Arena claim. The pattern is Claressa Shields' entire relationship with truth and promotion. And every time a new claim gets exposed, the pattern grows louder. Every time she doubles down instead of correcting, the pattern grows louder. Every time she takes shots at another female fighter to divert attention, the pattern grows louder. And the pattern, at this point, is the whole story. Because Claressa Shields is not just fighting Case Scott, or Amanda Serrano's shadow, or Laila Ali's legacy. Claressa Shields is fighting the credibility gap she has built around herself, and the credibility gap keeps compounding interest. Real talk, though, the boxing community is going to keep receipts on this. Boxing fans have long memories. Boxing fans track records. Boxing fans hold fighters accountable when the marketing outruns the reality. And Claressa Shields, whether she likes it or not, has now entered the phase of her career where the marketing has outrun the reality by a wider margin than her 4 professional knockouts can outrun the memory of Laila Ali's 21. Every future Claressa Shields press cycle from this moment forward is going to be shadowed by this exact receipt. Every future first ever tagline is going to draw a Phillips Arena reply underneath it within seconds. Every future State Farm Arena promotion is going to attract a Laila Ali footnote from somebody in the comment section. And Claressa Shields cannot delete the receipts. Claressa Shields cannot delete the Phillips Arena history. Claressa Shields cannot delete the 21 Laila Ali knockouts. The internet remembers, the boxing archive remembers, and the community remembers. Now moving on, because I want to leave you with the bigger picture, because the bigger picture is what actually matters for the future of women's boxing. Women's boxing is finally starting to get mainstream airtime, mainstream money, mainstream endorsement deals, and mainstream event budgets. And the reason women's boxing has gotten those things is because pioneers like Laila Ali did the unglamorous work of headlining ESPN2 cards in 2004 and 2005 when nobody was writing viral columns about it. Women's boxing didn't start with Claressa Shields. Women's boxing was built by Christy Martin, by Ann Wolfe, by Lucia Ridgeker, by Laila Ali, by Regina Halmich, by every fighter who ate real leather in the era before the streaming boom made it profitable. And every time the current generation tries to erase those names to lift its own branding, the sport takes a step backwards. Because a sport that erases its pioneers is a sport that loses the moral authority to demand respect from the next generation. That is the cost of the Claressa Shields' first ever playbook. It looks great in the algorithm. It reads terribly in the history book. Nobody can pretend otherwise. The receipts on Laila Ali are permanent. The receipts on Phillips Arena are permanent. And the receipts on the September 2004 and February 2005 headlining nights are permanent. And Claressa Shields' promotional team can shift the goalposts as many times as they want, but the receipts do not shift. The building does not shift. The history does not shift. The knockout ratio does not shift. The Amanda Serrano gap does not shift. The Case Scott mismatch does not shift. Every single fact about this promotional cycle is documented, timestamped, and public. And every single fact points back to the same conclusion. Claressa Shields got caught overreaching on a claim she never had to make in the first place. Because a fighter who is really the greatest woman of all time doesn't have to steal a first-ever headline from Laila Ali to sell a Saturday night in Atlanta. Look here, that is the entire lesson buried inside this scandal. Legacy is not something you can promote your way into. Legacy is something you earn quietly and let the receipts announce loudly. Claressa Shields is trying to reverse that order. Claressa Shields is trying to promote herself into legacy status before the receipts are actually there to support it. And the boxing community is calling the bluff in real time. That is the story of the State Farm Arena controversy. That is the story of the Laila Ali erasure. That is the story of the Zeus Network overlay. That is the story of the papered arena. That is the story of the since the rebrand goalpost shift. That is the story of the 4 knockouts against the 21. That is the story of the vacant belts. That is the story of the ducked Amanda Serrano fight. All of it is the same story. All of it is Claressa Shields trying to run a promotional shortcut around a legacy that hasn't been fully built yet. And the community is finally, publicly, loudly, and unmistakably saying no. So the question I want to leave with you is this. Is Claressa Shields going to course correct in her next press cycle and start showing real respect to the pioneers who built the road she is currently running down? Or is she going to keep the first ever playbook running until the credibility gap finally consumes the whole brand? Because those are the 2 roads. There is no third one. And whichever road Claressa Shields chooses is going to define the second half of her career more than any K. Scott, any State Farm Arena, or any Papoose ringside cameo ever could. Family, I want to hear your read on this. Are you rocking with the Claressa Shields greatest of all time branding after this week? Or is the Laila Ali receipts moment the final straw for you? Drop the honest answer in the comment thread waiting for you below, because I want to see where the community lands. And while you're down there, let me know which women's boxing pioneer you feel most deserves the flowers that keep getting handed to Claressa Shields instead. Real talk, real receipts, real names. Let's build the real list together. And next time we go here, we're going deeper into the vacant belt catalog piece by piece, because that entire ledger deserves its own reckoning. Stay locked in. The pattern is only just starting to show itself.